A very good morning, dear students. Welcome to e-learning classes of Sacred Hearts of Business Studies. Dear students, in the previous lecture, we have discussed about the owner's fund and borrowed fund along with its different features. Today, in our 29th lecture, dear students, we are going to start about the topic sources of raising finance. So dear students, if we talk about the sources of raising finance, then it is basically divided into two parts, the owner's fund and the borrowed fund that we have discussed earlier. So under the head of the owner's fund, there are a lot of options from which the finance can be issued. It can be the equity shares, it can be the preference shares, retained earning, GDR, that is the global deposit receipts, ADR, American deposit receipts, etc. These are the different options. Now we will discuss all the options one by one. The very first option, that is issue of shares. So very first question must arise in our mind, what is the share? What is the meaning of share? So dear student, share is the smallest unit in which owner's capital of company is divided. शेयर क्या होता है बेटा? कंपनी की ओनरशिप का स्मॉलेस्ट जो पार्ट होता है, स्मॉलेस्ट फ्रैक्शन को हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? शेयर्स बोलते हैं. ठीक है. अ शेयर इज द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द शेयर होल्डर इन द कंपनी. क्या है ये? इंटरेस्ट है किसका? ऑब्वियसली द पर्टिकुलर पर्सन हु इज परचेजिंग द शेयर, दैट मीन्स द शेयर होल्डर. कंपनी measured by a sum of money for the purpose of liability and interest, and that particular amount used to create the amount of liability and interest to the extent you have purchased the share. See further, according to Companies Act, a public company can issue two types of share. As per the Companies Act 1956, the public companies can issue two type of shares. The very first type of share is the equity share and the second one is the preference share. So initially we will discuss about the equity. Dear student, what is equity share? Equity share is a common security issued under permanent capital. क्या है? एक financial security है that is issued under the head of the permanent capital or the owner's capital. Equity shares are the most important source of long-term capital. What they used to provide? They used to provide the long-term capital, and equity shares are those shares which do not carry any special right. In particular shares के पास कोई special right, कोई preferential right available नहीं होता regarding the payment of dividend and regarding the repayment of capital. Now, prior to the year 2002, companies were allowed to issue equity shares with equal rights only. 2002 से पहले कंपनी सिर्फ एक टाइप की इक्विटी शेयर्स इशू कर सकती थी, बट आफ्टर द 2002 एक अमेंडमेंट हुआ एंड आफ्टर दैट द कंपनीज कैन इशू टू टाइप्स ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर्स. कंपनी क्या कर सकती हैं? टू टाइप्स की जो शेयर्स हैं वो इशू कर सकती हैं इक्विटी शेयर्स. द वेरी फर्स्ट इक्विटी शेयर विद इक्वल राइट, जो सेम है, कॉमन है, एंड द सेकेंड वन इक्विटी शेयर विद द डिफरेंशियल राइट्स एज टू डिविडेंड, और ऐसे इक्विटी शेयर जिनको डिविडेंड में कोई स्पेशल प्रेफरेंस मिलती है. Now we will discuss about the features of equity share. With the discussing of the features of equity share, हमको equity share का concept और clear होगा. The very first फीचर दैट इज़ द प्राइमरी रिस्क बेयरर्स. जो शेयर होल्डर्स होते हैं, इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स होते हैं, दे आर द प्राइमरी रिस्क बेयरर्स. दैट मीन्स वेन एवर द कंपनी इज हैविंग लॉस, दे आर द वेरी फर्स्ट एलिमेंट टू फेस दैट पर्टिकुलर लॉस. सेकेंड, क्लेम ओवर रेसिडुअल इनकम. व्हाट इज रेसिडुअल इनकम? left out income. So the equity shareholder can have the claim only on the residual income that is left out after the payment of every outsider and as well as after the payment of the preference shareholder. अब जो left out income होगी सिर्फ उस पर ये लोग क्या कर सकते हैं? claim कर सकते हैं, उसके लिए demand कर सकते हैं. Next, basis for loans. Equity share capital is the basis for on which loans can be raised. The amount of equity share capital adds to the credibility of the company. जिस कंपनी के जितने ज़्यादा इक्विटी शेयर्स होंगे मार्केट में, उसकी फिनेंशियल रेपुटेशन उतनी ही ज़्यादा क्या होगी? स्ट्रांग होगी, हाई होगी. एंड एज अ रिजल्ट एनी ऑफ द आउटसाइडर कैन प्रोवाइड लोन टू द पर्टिकुलर कंपनी हु इज़ हैविंग अ लॉट ऑफ अमाउंट ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर्स. सो इसके बेसिस पे लोन्स क्या कर सकते हैं? अरेंज कर सकते हैं. नेक्स्ट, कंट्रोल. इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स हैव कंट्रोल ओवर द एक्टिविटीज़ ऑफ कंपनी. Why they are having the control? Because they are getting वोटिंग राइट्स, उनको क्या मिलता है, वोटिंग राइट्स, एंड थ्रू दिस वोटिंग राइट दे यूज टू अपॉइंट द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स, एंड द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर आर द पर्टिकुलर पर्सन्स हु डायरेक्टली एसोसिएट एंड रेगुलेट द एक्टिविटीज ऑफ बिजनेस. Next, higher profit. When there will be the amount of higher profit, obviously the outsiders, the debenture holders, the preference shareholders will get a fixed rate of return. But whatever the left out income will be there, that will be the higher one. So obviously in the case of higher profit, the dividend that will be distributed to the equity shareholder will also be high. So they will be in the profitable situation when there will be the higher amount of profit. Next, preemptive right. And what is this beta? According to this right, whenever company is planning to issue the new equity share, जब भी कंपनी न्यू इक्विटी शेयर्स को इशू करेगी, इट इज़ इट्स ऑब्लिगेशन, ये उसकी ऑब्लिगेशन है दैट इनिशियली इट हैव टू ऑफर टू द एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर होल्डर. उसको एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर होल्डर्स को पहले इक्विटी शेयर्स ऑफर करने होंगे, एंड इफ द एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर होल्डर विल नॉट अप्लाई, देन ओनली दे कैन गो फॉर द पब्लिक. तभी क्या कर सकते हैं, पब्लिक को जो शेयर्स हैं वो इशू कर सकते हैं, एंड दिस इज नोन एज preemptive right. Last feature, that is the permanent capital. Once the equity share have been purchased, the particular amount that have been invested in the form of equity share that remains till the life of the business. वो business के साथ कब तक रहता है, जब तक business की life होती है. Equity shares are never reimbursed until and unless the business is not dissolving. जब तक business dissolve नहीं होता है, equity shares का amount कभी भी किसी को return नहीं होता है, reimburse नहीं होता. That means it is providing the permanent capital that is need not to be returned after a certain period of time. So this is all about equity shares. Now we will discuss about preference shares. So what are the preference shares? These are same as the share as the equity share, but they get some preferences, two preferences. And what are these two preferences? The first, इनको जो डिविडेंड मिलता है वो पहले मिलता है, एंड सेकंड, एट द टाइम ऑफ वाइंडिंग अप, जब बिजनेस क्लोज करते हैं तो उस टाइम पे इनको इनकी कैपिटल का पेमेंट भी पहले मिलता है. दैट मीन्स दे गेट प्रेफरेंस इन द पेमेंट ऑफ डिविडेंड एज वेल एज इन द रीपेमेंट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट एट द टाइम ऑफ वाइंडिंग अप. Now we will discuss about the features. The very first feature, that is the fixed rate of dividend. A certain fixed rate is there, and that is only provided. For example, 12% preference share. So how much return will be given to them? Only 12% return will be given to them. So this is the first feature. Second, no security. Whenever a particular company issues the preference share, there is no need to mortgage any of the asset with the particular investor. किसी भी चीज़ को mortgage, किसी भी asset को, किसी security को mortgage नहीं रखते हैं, and that means we can easily have the accumulation of funds through the preference shares. Next, voting rights. Generally, voting rights are not given to the preference shareholder, but when they don't get the dividend for 2 or more than 2 years, in that condition the voting right is passed on or given to the preference shareholders. Next one, hybrid security. Hybrid, that means a mixture security. And why we are saying the mixture? Because it is having the features of equity shares as well as debentures. Equity share, that means whenever the profit will be there, then only the return will be given. And debenture की characteristic क्या है बेटा? That a fixed rate will be given. So that is why it is called as the hybrid security, because it is containing the feature of more than one security. Next, help to collect the large amount of funds. How it helps in collection of the large amount of fund? Because here a fixed rate of return is provided, and this fixed rate of interest or the dividend provoke the mediocre investors, the secure investors, the preservative investors, and easily the people used to invest in the preference shares. So by this, a large amount of fund is accumulated through preference shares. And last one, that is the no fixed liability. The preference shareholder, whatever the dividend they used to get, it is not a fixed liability of the business. If they will have the profit, if the business will have the profit, then only the dividend will be given. And in the case of loss, no dividend will be given to the preference shareholder. So it is also one feature that it doesn't generate any of the fixed liability. So this is all about today, beta. Today we have seen about the equity share, features of equity share, preference shares, and features of preference share. This is all about today. God bless you all. Thank you very much.